Morning guys, so I'm returning this U-Haul trailer that my wife and I used all weekend long. Man, I'm telling you, I was really surprised with the mileage this thing put up on the way home after I got it from the dealership, but you won't believe how well it did towing this U-Haul trailer around all weekend. I mean, this thing it's blowing me away. Yeah, so just to put that into perspective, the Ram, which had the same powertrain, same engine, same transmission, it was a 21 mile per gallon truck, roughly. I mean, some tanks I'd see 19 or 20, some tanks I'd see 22, but you know, I put 18,000 miles on that thing and it was basically a 21 mile per gallon truck. And that's just riding around unloaded, you know, to work and back, to wherever and back, you know, just driving it around from city to city, sometimes out on the highway, long trips. You know, my average was right there in the low 20s the whole time. So, you know, to be able to hook on a trailer, you know, the U-Haul trailer was small. It was just a 5x8 trailer, but it's still a box that you're dragging down the road, and it was loaded up with stuff, and it was pretty heavy actually. Those trailers are almost 1,000 pounds empty, even though they're small. You know, and I had my family in the truck and everything. It was hot and humid outside, had the air conditioning rolling the whole time. You know, so to be able to pull 23, you know, out of this truck doing that, I mean, I'm just very impressed with it. It's pretty awesome. Hopefully it will get even better as time goes on. So now, with all that being said, it's time to finish up this first phase of the great all-around Jeep Gladiator build. Of course, phase one has been getting this thing ready to tow my big 24-foot trailer. So let's finish that up, shall we? So in all of the years I've been towing, which is about 25 or 30 years now, and all of the different things I've towed and all of the different vehicles I've used as tow rigs, one thing that I've never fooled with is the weight distribution hitches. I've just never owned one, never used one, never have fooled with them. And I guess the reason is because they're just, you know, they can be complicated. They add quite a bit of time to hooking up a trailer and going. And I don't know. I mean, we just never have fooled with it. And to be honest, I've never really had any trouble, you know. There've been times in the past when I was at the maximum capacity of my truck, or maybe even a little bit over, I don't know, especially in my younger days when I was kind of carefree, you know. And I never had any trouble, never had any problems. So it's just something I've never really fooled with. But these days, I'm getting a little older. I'm starting to think more about liability, safety, you know, for my family, that kind of stuff, for other people on the road. And I'm trying to do things more by the book than I used to. So with the Jeep here, you know, like I said the other day, going's not going to be a problem because I've got the turbo diesel under the hood, tons of torque, no problem at all pulling a load. And I'm not really worried about stopping either because these Gladiators have pretty good brakes on them, and the trailer has its own brakes too. So I'm not really worried about that either. The one thing that kind of worries me a little bit is handling and steering characteristics, because as you know, these JL and JT models are not they're not really well known for handling characteristics to begin with. Right off the showroom floor, they're just not very good. So I'm guessing that if you put a 24-foot trailer behind one of these on a windy day, could get a little bit sketchy. So I decided that I'm going to go ahead and soak it up and just try to do what I probably ought to do, which is use a weight distribution system on this when I pull the big trailer. And you know, that should keep things safe. So let me show you the one that I went with and why. So this one is the Husky Centerline TS. You can get these in different ratings. The one that I got is rated 600 to 800 pounds of tongue weight. But what you'll notice is that the head of the unit here is the same regardless of which one you get. So the only difference is the bars. You know, you try to match the bars up for what you think your tongue weight is going to be, you know, when you're fully loaded and headed down the road. But anyway, the reason I went with this one is because, first of all, there's no chains to fool with. You can see this one uses this system where you've got a tool right there that you use to lift the bar up and over these little dowel pins, and it just kind of rests on that bracket, and then you've got a safety pin there to hold it on. So
from that standpoint, it's a little bit easier to hook up. And the other thing about it is the way that that bar rides on the bracket, that friction in there provides some sway control also. So this particular one does weight distribution and sway control. And to be honest, sway control is my main concern. I'm not all that worried about weight distribution because I have the timbering kit on there. But this will help do some weight distribution and, more importantly, the sway control. Now this kit comes with a really solid shank that is, I think it's rated for 14,000 pounds, so that's overkill. And when you're buying equipment for towing, I think overkill is good. This particular head is stamped 12,000 pounds, so again, that's overkill. The other thing about this one is that you see here how the bars go into it. A lot of the other brands, the bars are curved on the end and they go down through the top. You know, there's a 90 on the end of the torsion bar and it goes down through the top like that. And just my guess is that in the long run, those won't be as durable, because when you do it like that, you're putting a whole lot of stress, you know, on that joint right there. The way this one is designed, you can see these big heavy duty blocks and the bar just slides straight in. So you've got a lot more strength there. And that kind of appealed to me. I like the way this is set up. I feel like this is something that'll probably last a lot longer. It'll be more heavy duty and more rugged. So that's the main reasons I went with this kit. It does both things, weight distribution and sway control. It's heavy duty, it's rugged, it's pretty simple in design. This is all there is to it right here. And I just kind of like the way it's set up. So I'm gonna try and get this installed on the truck. So this is one of those projects, guys, where I really do suggest that you go through here and you look at the required tools list, because some of this stuff you're gonna probably find you don't have in your toolbox. Like, I have a whole bunch of tools, but I did not have a 15/16 open end wrench. So I had to run to the hardware store and get one of those. I also do not have a 1 7/8 inch socket. So, you know, this is the kind of stuff that most guys are not gonna have in the toolbox, because it's pretty big stuff that you're normally not gonna need. So make sure you have the stuff that you're gonna need before you get started. So I've just laid out the hardware kit here. You know, the first part of this is just assembling the head of the unit. And what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna want to go to your trailer, take some measurements. It tells you all about this stuff over in the instructions, you know, how to do this. And because you're gonna want to set this up where the hitch ball is 1 inch higher than where the coupler is when your trailer is sitting level. So that's the first thing you do. And then once you get it to the height where you want it, and by the way, that shank right there, you can flip it over if you need to. I've got it set to where I can put the ball as low as possible, because, you know, this Jeep, I'm getting ready to put a small lift on it and some tires. It's gonna raise the rear end up a little bit. So I'm starting out as low as I possibly can, and I think it's gonna actually work out pretty good. But anyway, once you get the height where you want it, then you're gonna come in here and put these bolts in. Make sure you use the proper washers. Again, in the instructions, it tells you which ones to use. You've got this pin right there in the top of the head. You've got a pin you have to slide in, and then you've got this set screw down at the bottom. You can probably see it down here. And when you tighten that down, it forces that pin on the top against the shank. And that's what gives you the proper angle on the head of the unit. So like I said, all of this is laid out in the instructions. The instructions are actually pretty good with this thing overall. Some of the wording is a little vague, but they do give you some really nice pictures and diagrams, and everybody loves pictures and diagrams. So got to get the head of the unit set up first, and then the trailer will come into the equation. Phew, that's some hard work, guys. So that's the part that's also gonna break your back, unless you have, you know, a big air compressor with some serious air tools. You know, if you don't have that, then, you're probably going to want to get a large breaker bar. I'm still out of breath. I cranked on that thing as hard as I could. So this breaker bar is a 2-foot bar, and I'm about 200 pounds. So I figure that when I get it as tight as I possibly can with all my weight, I'm probably getting real close to that 380 foot-pounds that it specs on those nuts and bolts. So these are like 1 1/8 inch nuts and bolts. And then the set screw under here is a 15/16. So, and of course you got these great big flat washers. So all this hardware here has to really be torqued down tight, because obviously this is the, no pun intended, it's the nuts and bolts of the whole operation. You know, if this stuff comes loose when you're going down the road, you got big problems on your hands. So 380 foot-pounds is the spec, and I use this big breaker bar and cranked on it with everything I've got. So now that part's finally done, and it's time to move on to sliding the spring bars into the trunnions. So the directions say that when you slide these spring bars in, you want the stamp there, the numbers, you want those to be facing up. And also when you slide this in, you're going to pull that pin out and make sure that the bar goes all the way in, because if you're not paying attention, you can put the pin back in front of the bar instead of through the bar. So you got to pay attention to that and make sure that it goes through the bar. And one way you can check is when you get it hooked up like this, you can come back here and grab it and try to pull it out, you know, because if it's not through the bar, obviously it'll come out pretty easy. And then after that is when we really start to need the trailer, so we can put the brackets on and start doing our final measurements. Okay, so now that I've caught my breath, I'm going to move on to the trailer portion of this. So the instructions tell you that you have to measure from the center of your hitch right here, where the ball rests up into the ball mount. From the center of that back, you've got a 2-inch window you can work with. It says to mount these brackets between 28.5 and 30.5 inches from the center of the ball mount. And that worked out pretty good for me, because as you can see on my trailer, the battery box is right here with wiring and everything. And it just so happened that this is 29.5 inches right here, which falls right in the middle of that spec that they want. So I got lucky, it worked out good. Now basically what you've got here is these 2 plates right here sandwich the frame of your trailer. You've got a carriage bolt, you've got a flat washer, a lock washer, and a hex nut. This is 3/4 of an inch, and it says to torque that down to 55 foot-pounds. And then this is your lift bracket. This is the part that your spring bars are going to ride on. It slides up in there, and obviously it's adjustable, so when we hook the trailer to the truck, we can fine-tune all this. So that's pretty much all there is to this part. Now I've got to torque that down, and we'll be ready to finish this up. All right, so it's time for the final step here. The instructions say to take measurements. So the very bottom of the trunnion right there should be the same distance off the ground as the face or the surface here of the lift bracket that the bar is going to ride in. Okay, so that distance from the ground up should be the same. And I don't have, you notice that I don't have the full weight of the trailer on there doing this, obviously. So I'm going to put the bars on here. Actually, what I'm going to do at this point, now that I've verified that my measurements are where I want them, now I am going to go ahead and hook the trailer ball up and then jack it up so that we can get the bars on. So that just about wraps it up. Once you get the weight on there and you have everything set to the measurements that you need, then you can use the tool, the included tool over there, to pop the bars up onto the lift brackets. And then of course that's pretty much all there is to it. Now these are adjustable, so in the future when I get the different tires on here and the hitch ball raises up a little bit more, you know, I can do some adjustments here and fine-tune everything. But I believe this is going to make everything a lot safer and a lot more comfortable headed down the road with the Gladiator. And now that the bar is in here, you can see how the way that the bar rides on this lift plate is going to it's going to be really nice for sway control, because the friction here is how that operates, and you know, it should keep the trailer from trying to wag the truck going down the road. It's hot out here. It takes some effort to pop those bars up and over. So, you know, plan some time to go slow, have a drink or two. You know, if it's hot out, no sense in overdoing it, but I'm glad this is set up. Like I said, I've never, you know, really messed with these before, but I'm pretty confident this is gonna make towing with the Gladiator so much better. So I got that done, I got the mirrors done, I got the Curt Echo. All I have to do with it is download the app on my smartphone, and I'm ready to tow, guys. This is a pretty big trailer, but I have no fears. I think the Gladiator can handle it just fine. Also have these Rampage towing mirrors. These are made for the JK, which is the reason why you have to get the adapters from Thorn Engineering. But these will go on the outside of the JL mirrors just fine once you get the adapters, of course. And the thing I like about these is that the design matches the factory look. I mean, of course I got to get the adapters, but I mean, it doesn't look gaudy and ridiculous. Some of them are like completely different shape and they stick way out here with a couple of bars, which would give you better visibility, but I've heard that they also vibrate a lot and they just don't match. These, you know, they won't look ridiculous and they'll give, you know, several inches of additional view down the side of the truck. So I like these Rampage mirrors, the way they're designed, and they probably won't vibrate as bad because you can see the glass is inside that housing, so that'll kind of shield them from the wind going down the road. So here's the Thorn Engineering adapters that I got from eBay. This fellow is a member of the Gladiator Forum, and he came up with this cool idea. He 3D printed these so that you can use the JK Rampage towing mirrors on the JL and JT style factory mirrors. So you just got these adapters that screw on. Included hardware is in the bag, obviously, and instructions. And then you can use these JK mirrors on the Gladiator or the Wrangler. I like the way it looks. They're pretty snug. The glass is inside the housing on these Rampage mirrors, very similar to how they do the factory style mirror. So that kind of shields the glass from a little bit of the wind going down the road. So again, that gives you several additional inches of visibility out the side of your truck, which is awesome for towing a trailer. So I think this is gonna take care of that issue. Yeah, so now that that phase is over, it's time to move on to the next phase. I got some cool stuff I think you're gonna like even better. We're gonna make it a little bit more of a Jeep. We've made it a truck, now it's time to make it a little bit more of a Jeep. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you later.